Today we are doing a tutorial for Arrtx Watercolor Brush Markers. You guys can check out the review for these markers by clicking the card right here. These are markers that feature a true brush tip with individual bristles to the tip, and I am really excited to show you guys how to paint a beautiful succulent with these watercolor markers today. So the materials that you're going to need to follow along are your watercolor brush markers. You're also going to need a couple of water brushes. You're going to need ideally a scrap piece of plastic or a non-porous surface. Today we're working on the Ink Essentials craft sheet. You are going to want probably some color pencils. We're going to be using Color Eno colored leads today. And you're going to want your watercolor paper. And today I'm going to be working in my Canson XL watercolor sketchbook. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to pull up some reference of succulents or a succulent that you want to paint, or you can kind of freehand a succulent. I'm going to walk you through the process right now. So I am starting with my pink color pencil because I have a beautiful, vibrant pink and purple succulent in front of me. I'm going to pick one of the leaves, and I'm just going to start sketching from there. Zoom in so you guys can see what I'm doing. It's kind of a pretty teardrop shape, and one of the reasons I love painting flowers in succulents is they don't have to be perfect in order to be beautiful. Often when we're drawing faces, they need to be accurate and you need to be on model for them to really work. But the nice thing about succulents and flowers is you can be kind of loose, you can be kind of sketchy, and it'll still look fantastic. So I start with one of the inner leaves as kind of a reference point, and then I continue to work my way inward just a little bit, sketching in the rest of the interior leaves, and then I start working my way around and out. What's nice about the Color Eno color pencils is that they are in mechanical pencils, so they are forever sharp so long as you have fresh lead, and they are very erasable. They also play beautifully with watercolor markers. All right, so my referenced succulent is finished. It's looking a little bit lopsided, so I'm just going to add in a couple more leaves, sort of just based on the leaves I've already drawn. Switch over to my blue pencil. You can do this all in one color if you wish. I'm just going to use this to indicate some of the darker areas. Next, I'm going to begin by picking out some of the colors I think will work best for this. And in the Arrtx set, we have a lot of really nice pinks and purples to choose from. And then I'm going to kind of organize them by color and by intensity. Let's see if I can't find one more light purple, or maybe some interesting blue violets. So in this tutorial, we are going to do two types of application. We're going to do direct to paper application, and we're also going to pick up color from our non-porous craft sheet. And I think I'm going to start with the nice, really light purple. You can also use a ceramic plate for this, or a plastic plate. Really what we're doing is we're applying ink to the non-porous surface. Then we're going to pick it up with our water brush. And this is a really good way to add just a super light wash of color to get just a hint of color on there. As you can see with that petal there. So this method is also really handy if you want to mix two colors. If you want to mix two colors together. While the paper is saturated, we can also apply color, and we're going to get a really, really nice, soft, blended effect. And you can blend that out with a water brush, or you can grab another color. We're going to use a dark pink here and begin blending them together on the paper. And that's why we're using watercolor paper. It allows us to get some really beautiful, subtle gradient blends. We can also kind of back blend with prior colors we've applied. And as long as we're working wet into wet, we're going to get these really soft transitions. And we can continue working it if we wish. I'll zoom in so you guys can really admire how nice that looks. But as you guys can see, very simple. Doesn't really take a lot of expertise. Just takes some patience and a willing to work from reference. So I don't have a nice light violet. What I do have is sort of a Delft blue. So I'm going to put this in over that pink I put down initially. And I'm going to put down a little bit of that pink. And I'm so sorry this craft mat doesn't do a better job showing that. Then I'm going to use some water. Kind of mix them together. And I love how beautifully these dye-based colors kind of flow and blend on the paper. They're very easy to work with. And you can get some really brilliant colors. So I'm using that kind of Delft blue, and I'm just sort of working the color a little bit more. I want a little bit more purple, so I'm going to apply some purple to my craft sheet and then pick that up with that lighter pink. And what that's going to do is it's going to mix the pink and the purple together on my brush. And it's going to allow for really smooth gradation, if that's what I'm looking for. I'm going to kind of work that into the blue a little bit. And then I'm going to use that purple that I mixed with the pink just now. And I'm just going to kind of refine some of the colors a little bit. Now, if you don't want a smooth blend, if you want kind of a sharp transition, just wait for the ink to dry. Now I've grabbed a hot pink. And I grab my original blue and just kind of blend things out a little bit while everything's still wet. What's beautiful about these markers too is they're not going to tear up your paper surface, especially if you're using a watercolor paper. So you can work the same area several times in order to get the color and the transitions that you want. So if you're a fan of, say, adult coloring books, I would really recommend printing the images you want onto your paper, onto your watercolor paper using a toner-based printer, and then using these markers on top of that. I'm going to apply some of the darker purple, and I'm going to pick it up with the lighter blue. And just kind of work it in there. Now, for the full purposes of disclosure, I was set this set by Arrtx, and they asked me to do a review and to do a tutorial with it. But they didn't specify what kind of tutorial. That was left up to me. And when I agreed to do a review, I said that was going to be an honest review. So all opinions and techniques are my own, and this is the method that I thought, or this is a method actually. I really want to show you guys several methods, but this is a method I think these markers are really suited for. And I hope to show you guys, not that it was part of the agreement, but because I want to show you guys some more methods for just different techniques that you can do with these types of markers in the near future. Okay, so I applied the light blue to my non-porous craft sheet. I used my water brush to pick up some of that light blue. I was having flow issues, but that's a comment on the water brush, not a comment on the marker, to kind of spread the color around and saturate the area. Now, since it's still wet, I'm going to brush in some additional color, really take advantage of those beautiful light transitions. And as you guys may have noticed, right now we're creating what looks like lineless watercolor art. Only we know that originally we sketched it in. Now I'm going in with that purple, as well as some hot pink. I'm going to go in now with some light pink and just kind of move the color around a little bit. And I'm kind of working my way outwards from the leaf we first started drawing with all the way out. So I'm applying that delft blue to this interior leaf here. I'm going to try to get as close to my previous layers as possible. Now I'm going to use my water brush. I'm just going to pick some of that color up, lighten some of that color. And inside, I'm actually going to dab in a little bit of purple. And I'm going to blend that out using the blue. And it flows so nicely on the wet paper. And I'm going to go in and just add a little bit of hot pink. All right, so I've been using a lot of blue. I want to start kind of not necessarily moving away from it, but introduce some other colors. So I've got here kind of a blue purple that I've applied to my craft mat. I'm going to pick up one of my water brushes and kind of mix it in with all the other colors that I've put down before. And another beautiful thing about these types of markers is you have the option of either using them as watercolor markers where you apply it directly to the page, or as watercolors where you pick the color up and you paint with it using either a water brush or a wet paintbrush, or you can do a combination of the two. So this leaf here has a lot of purple and pink in it. So we're going to pick up some of our residual watercolor from our mat. And it's okay if we go in and blend some of these colors too. You can always reapply if the area ended up too light. And something else that's really cool about these is if you have a rag or a paper towel or a napkin handy, you can also do some lifting techniques using your water brush. So let's say I want to lighten this area up. I've applied some clean water to it, and then I can just pick it up very simply with my bit of napkin. And then you can blend that out or apply another color there. In the background, we have one that's really kind of gray. So I grabbed a darker purple, and I'm going to grab a red violet. Hopefully together, it'll give me the color I want. Mix them together using my water brush. And I'm just gonna let them kind of desaturate as we move away from the center. So I went and picked up a little bit more of the color, a little bit stronger version of the color. You guys can see how smoothly that blends. Maybe I want a little bit more red. I can add some of the red violet in there. Maybe I want some more blue. I can add that in over here. And then we have a leaf here where part of it is facing the sun, so it's almost entirely lit. So I've kind of sketched in my shadow. Now I'm using a darker, more saturated purple to kind of fill in the area a little bit. I'm just going to outline the back of the leaf really subtly with purple, just since we're going for a lineless effect. And I'm going to blend out a little bit of that hot pink. And I need a little bit of pink here in the center of the flower, or in the leaf, sorry. You're on to me. Now you know my secret of how I really think about succulents. I think of them like I'm painting flowers. And this is just kind of a perfect low stress relaxation activity you can do, where you're still creating something original, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And as long as you keep your color selection kind of simple, you can't really go wrong. So I'm blending out that pink a little bit. I'm gonna go back to the old-fashioned super light pink, and then we're gonna do some blue over it. I'm not even thinking too hard about color theory or anything like that as I'm working right now. I'm just kind of chilling out and relaxing, kind of just enjoying playing with these watercolor markers. You can get some really lovely effects even on inexpensive watercolor papers. You just need kind of a thirsty paper, something that can hold a lot of water. Because those are the papers where these kind of paints really seem to shine. So some of these outer leaves are really intensely pink, which I love. I love that we're working kind of a transition of color. So I'm gonna get this leaf over here, which is a lot of the blue and a lot of hot pink. It should be kind of exciting to work with. So I just mixed up a lot of purple and pink and grabbed it on my blue. So I'm going to start by kind of painting the heart of this leaf. Really pretty. And then I'm going to kind of blend that out here and there, making sure to leave untouched areas and areas of white so we get nice bounce. And then I'm going to grab our hot pink and kind of start working it into this leaf. There's a lot of hot pink in this leaf. Apply more purple to my mat. Grab it with the blue. Just start working that in a little bit more. Now I feel like, now that we're moving back more towards the pink, I feel like the fun is beginning to pick up again. So I'm going to color this leaf in with that very pale pink. And these don't have color names on them, I believe. Let me grab a little bit of the blue and purple. And just kind of brush it on there. And while that's still kind of wet, actually, I'll put down the hot pink on here and then pick it up with my light pink. I'll do something similar with this leaf here. This is one that we invented. So I'm going to use this one to introduce some blue back in too. So we're going to cover the whole thing saturated in pink. Put down some of our light blue. Just start brushing that in and blending that in here and there. In a future tutorial, I will prepare some people. Y'all know me, so probably some pretty monster girls, something like that. And we'll talk about using these to paint people. But you can get really nice soft blends with very little effort, and you don't have to deal with any fumes. They're a little bit easier, I think, to work with than alcohol markers. I say this all the time, but if you're a parent and you have a kid, maybe a 14-year-old, maybe a 16-year-old, maybe a 12-year-old, maybe a 9-year-old, you have a kid though who's really good at art and they really, really want alcohol markers, what I would really recommend you do is start them with some of these and share some of my tutorials with them, because they're going to be able to do the blending that they really want. That's why they're asking for alcohol markers, is they really want to be able to do the blending. And you don't have to worry about them dealing with toxic chemicals. You don't have to worry about them dealing with fumes. If you have younger children, these sort of dye-based markers are they are staining, but they're frequently non-toxic. So that's not something you really have to be as concerned about. All right, so I'm applying some of that hot pink. And then we have this really big leaf here. And this one's interesting because it's mostly hot pink. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my hot pink to my craft mat. And I'm going to pick it up with my water brush and kind of blend that out. But really, I mean, I don't mean to limit these markers to younger artists. I think they can be fantastic for any kind of artist who enjoys lots of blending and bright, brilliant colors and being able to play with colors and the forgivability of these sort of markers. All right, well, it's still wet. I'm going in with the hot pink again. I mean, for like floral studies, these sort of markers are just fantastic. You can get such beautiful colors, such nice color depth, and you can do this kind of work kind of quickly too, which can be really nice. Grabbing a different pink here. This one's a little more red. Getting some other tones in this leaf. And then blend this out with that lighter bluish pink. Now over here we have a really nice combination of pink and purple with, I think, no blue in between. Put down a few different possible colors onto my craft sheet. And I actually should keep them handy so I can do intercolor mixing with them. Now, as you guys will see, because these are dye-based markers, they are kind of prone to lifting if you apply and scrub, or if you just apply and let it sit. So that is definitely something you're going to want to be aware of as you're working. Grab a nice red violet to kind of apply to the center. Blend that out a little bit with a more red violet. So less red, more violet. So I applied a nice purple violet, and I'm just kind of blending it out by reaching within the color and using the light pink to blend it out a little bit. Another thing, and I'll show you guys what I mean in detail, but another thing that's really, really nice about these kind of markers is that cleanup is so easy. Depending on how you use them, cleanup might be even easier than if you were using watercolors. So I applied my hot pink. I'm blending it out with my lighter pink. This is one of our imaginary additions. So I'm just kind of going with the flow here, sort of reading the room. Doing it mostly in hot pink, but I am adding just a little bit of purple. And then here, it gets really nice and dark. So we can use our dark red and grab our water brush. And it's such a beautiful color when it's blended out. Now that we have the area kind of saturated, we can go in with our brush and just sort of sketch in. Grab some red and violet, add that in as well, since there's purple notes. And then I'm going to apply this directly to the back side because it gets really dark back here. And grabbing a darker purple. Oh, that's lovely. It's nice and plummy. So right now, for the most part, we've done really soft blends. I'm gonna finish kind of filling out this succulent and allow these colors to dry a bit. And then we're gonna go in and do some less, I don't wanna say harsh, but more defined lines. So my next leaf has a little bit of blue in it. We're back at the blue. So I've applied some to the craft sheet. I'm just gonna pick it up. Here we go. How beautiful is that? If we want to kind of reinforce that, we can go in directly while it's still wet. Just add a little bit. So pretty. And then we're going to grab our red violet. And as I go, I hope you guys have kind of noticed that I've tried to leave some of the white of the page. The reason I'm doing that is it's going to make this more interesting to look at, and it's going to have just kind of a better visual balance. There's going to be a little bit better contrast. We're not trying to blend every single area. We're not trying to make every area a perfect transition. Okay, so we've got one petal left. We're going to go in with the light pink. You're going to add a lot of water to some areas. That's going to help increase blending later on. So it's going to give us some really interesting areas where we get really soft blends, and then areas where we get kind of harder blends, or not blends at all, harder lines, harder transitions. And then I want to do something that hints at the gravel these are sitting on. And for that, I want to go more blue than brown or purple. So this set comes with some really nice blue grays and browns. So I picked out a few of my favorites. And I'm going to show you guys real quick how easy it is to clean this up. A little spritzer bottle of water. Although you can do something really cool with that, and I'll show you that in a later tutorial. But we're going to say goodbye to that for right now. And it gives us a nice clean work area to work with. Pull out a little bit for you guys. And I'm just going to start kind of sketching in some pebbles, just kind of loosely, pebbles, round shapes. Just kind of letting my watercolor brush pen dance across the paper. This would be a good place to add in a little bit right there. Switch on over to another blue. I'm going to try to remember that I need to vary the size of these pebbles. They're all kind of falling into two categories, so try to draw some big ones in there. Before we get too much blue on this paper, we're going to switch over to brown. Ooh, that's more yellow ochre than I thought, but that's okay. We're going to roll with it. Kind of goes with this anyway. It's a nice kind of contrast, but I need to limit how many I do because it's a little more saturated than I intended for it to be. Also kind of smooshing around, rolling back in some of the prior colors. And you got kind of a true gray, so I'm going to use that to diffuse some of these. Just by kind of going over them, mushing it around, mixing it. This is great for any color that's a little too saturated. And I'm not trying to fill the whole area. I'm just trying to get decent coverage. Ooh, this one's nice. This is a nice warm brown. And it picks up the other colors really nicely. So we can get some nice soft sort of transitional blends. And then kind of a medium brown. Works well with all these blues. Okay, so we've got sort of our basic illustration drawn. You could stop here if you want to, but you could add a little chaos to your life with a water bottle. And I'm doing lazy squirts so that I get fat droplets on here as well as some finer droplets. And these are dye-based watercolors, so they're going to be water reactive. This is going to help break up the outline. It's going to help make things just a little bit more interesting. Now, you can either let this dry or you can roll a roll of paper towels over it and just kind of pick up some of the dye, the paint. I'm going to really get sloppy with the pebbles. And then we got to let it dry. All right, so this has had a chance to dry. You can see that the water really worked a number on it. I like it. It kind of made things a little looser, a little freer, not quite so uptight. And I'm going to pull up my reference again. And I'm going to use some pinks and purples to do some outlining. Not trying to get it tight, just trying to kind of add back a little bit what was lost, especially in areas like this where a lot of detail was kind of lost. I kind of like that though. I always enjoy the push and the pull between, creating a little bit of controlled chaos and, adding details back in. I think as long as it doesn't become impossible to tell what it is or unattractive, then it doesn't really matter. As long as you're happy with it, that's the key thing, you or your customer. Plus, the water splatter effect really adds a lot of liveliness to the piece that, you know, maybe it was kind of lacking. It's a really easy way to just kind of shake things up a little bit. And it's fun. Or at least I think it's fun. And it's one of the really nice things about playing around with dye-based watercolors is you can do this sort of quick randomization. And then you can go back over it if you want to, or you can just move on from there. Really just depends on the kind of art you want to make. Now I'm going to use one of my purple watercolor brush pens. I'm just going to do a little bit of outlining just here and there. I'm going to try to keep it really light and kind of suggestive. Evocative is a good word for it. Because this is a line artless piece, I want to continue with that trend. So it's a few areas that could maybe benefit a little bit from being tightened up a bit. I think also the water splatter kind of adds a magical feeling to it. It's almost like a sparkle effect. Okay, so there's just one more thing I want to do on this piece, and that's going to require some white gouache, a white gel pen, or some bleed-proof Martins, PH Martins bleed-proof white. And I was really good about kind of leaving white highlights, white sparkles. So this should not be hard at all. I'm just going to use this to add a few white highlights back in. Just gonna kind of up our sparkly quota. I'm mostly just doing it on kind of the outside edges just to kind of help add a little bit more definition, help some of these colors pop a little bit more. Add it to some of the rocks. And if you mix the white kind of wet, it'll reactivate the paint. You can use that to kind of blend it a little bit. If you rendered an area too dark, for example, and you want to do a highlight, this could be a way to do a highlight. But I think we're gonna call this piece finished for today. So in real time, that took me about an hour and 20 minutes. Not too much of a time investment. A good evening alone, a good evening of quiet. It was nice and relaxing. These markers are very easy to use. I didn't need a lot of additional materials. Really, the only additional materials I used was a non-porous surface, and you could just use some scrap plastic that you're going to throw away as your non-porous surface, or a clean plate. I used a spray brush, a spray bottle with water in it, a water bottle, all over myself tonight, a water brush with clean water in it, and then something to add white details and some watercolor paper. So the materials are very easy to come by. You could just go to Walmart and get almost everything you need, or get it all through Amazon. So that was just one of a few tutorials I have planned for the Arrtx watercolor brush markers. You can find a link in the description below where you can order your own. I hope you guys found this helpful, useful, maybe even a little inspiring. If you enjoyed it, make sure you let Arrtx know, since they were the ones who so kindly sent me these to review and to create a tutorial for. So I'm Becca Hilburn. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope I see you guys again really soon. Bye guys!